So we won the lot lottery. We got our dream lot. Now the fun part. What the heck are we actually going to build on it? You know, building and designing a home from the ground up sounds like a lot of fun, and it is. But it can get overwhelming really fast. Because every time you say, "Oh, I like that," and then you hear how much the choice costs, you suddenly think to yourself, do I really like it that much? Welcome back to From Dirt to Doorbell. Today we're taking you inside our design process. What we choose, what we upgraded, what we decided to do ourselves later, and a few things we learned that could save you some serious money if you're thinking about building a home in the Villages. Once we had Lot 9, the first big decision was obviously what kind of house we're going to put on it. We spent a lot of time going through the model homes and looking at different layouts. We went through the Street of Dreams and placed various homes on our site plan to see which fit best. But we kept on coming back to one particular model, the St. Lawrence. Not only did we love the open floor plan and 14-foot ceilings, but the way this home, with the extra windows on the side, would sit on our pie-shaped lot gave us the perfect views of Central Lake and downtown Eastport. We felt it perfectly captured the essence of this location. And once we settled on the St. Lawrence, the real decision-making began. The first day of design was honestly a little overwhelming. I don't know how someone could actually try to fit this into one day. You're looking at cabinets, countertops, flooring, fixtures, lighting, appliances, and every decision seems to lead to another decision. But then you start hearing the prices of all these upgrades, and we really had no clue of what some of these upgrades were actually worth, or whether we'd be better off not choosing them at all. That's when Patrice and I realized we didn't want to make all these decisions in one day. Now, some people may be perfectly comfortable with doing that, but we certainly weren't. So here's probably our best advice to you. Take your time at this phase. If you need more time, tell your designer you need it. That's what we did. After that first overwhelming day, we spent the next couple of days doing our homework, visiting appliance, kitchen, and lighting showrooms, and comparing prices. We wanted to understand what the builder offered and what our alternatives were. That turned out to be one of the smartest things we did during the entire design process. Lighting was a perfect example. We saw what the builder offered, what we liked, and most importantly, what the upgrades were going to cost. Then we went out and compared. For some of the light fixtures, we discovered we could get something we liked much better for less money than the upgrade options were offered. So in those places, we just chose the basic builder fixture because we already knew we were going to replace it after closing. Why spend a lot of money upgrading something you're going to take down anyway? We did the same thing with ceiling fans and ended up finding better choices at better prices outside the design center. And you didn't have to pick the same damn fan for every room like the builder expects. And we never would have figured out that if we tried making all those decisions on the first day. The kitchen was obviously a big decision. We went with the white cabinets, stainless steel appliances, and quartz countertops. We wanted something bright and clean that wasn't going to feel dated in 5 years. And then you get into all those other decisions. Backsplash, under cabinet lighting, fixtures, hardware, and those details that don't seem very important until you're sitting there and somebody's asking you, which one do you want? But after taking some time and doing our homework, we went back and we knew a lot more about what we wanted and what we weren't going to pay extra for. Flooring was another big decision. There are some upgrades that are relatively easy to change later. Flooring throughout an entire house isn't one of them. And we had to pick one floor that we were going to install throughout the entire home. That's just the way they do it. We wanted the wood look, but we also wanted something practical for Florida. So we ended up going with the luxury vinyl plank flooring. We love it. Then you start going into the bathroom finishes, the tiles, the faucets, hardware, molding, closets. Oh, it just keeps on going. Now, here's one that a lot of people might not even think about. Hot water. At our other home in the Villages, when Patrice wants to take a shower, she turns the shower on and folds some laundry, has some coffee, and then comes back to take a shower. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but not by much. It takes a while for that hot water to get there. So during the design process, we had the option of changing the original plumbing plan and adding a hot water recirculation system. Well, basically it keeps hot water circulating so you're not waiting several minutes for the shower or faucet to get hot. Now, it wasn't cheap, but Patrice and I looked at each other and said, we're going to enjoy this every single day. Here's the other important part. Plumbing for this needs to be done during the build. Trying to get this done after the house is finished would be extremely difficult. So this was one of those upgrades where we said, spend the money now. Another decision I'm really glad that we made during the build was extending the lanai. We extended it about 4 feet. And here's something important if you're building. This is one of those decisions you really need to make during the build, because you're simply not adding 4 feet of concrete to walk on. The entire roof structure changes with the extended lanai. That's not something you're going to easily come back to do after the house is finished. By extending it during construction, we gained another 4 feet of covered outdoor space. And in Florida, especially during rainy season, covered outdoor space is incredibly valuable. So for us, that was absolutely worth it. Now there was another option. We could also extend the uncovered patio slab. And that was a completely different decision. It was pretty expensive. And Patrice and I looked at each other and basically said, why would we do that now? Unlike the covered lanai, the patio slab is something we could easily add after closing without affecting the structure of the house. And there was another consideration. We were already thinking that, maybe someday we'll put in a pool. And if we eventually put in a pool, we're probably going to be adding pavers and redesign that whole outdoor area anyway. So we could spend the money on additional concrete now, only to cover it up, or possibly have to remove it, or some of it at least, someday later. So, extend the lanai during the build? Absolutely. Extra patio slab? Hard no. Looking back, I'm really happy with both of those decisions. There were also some things that you really don't think about when you're actually designing the house. Where exactly is that light going? Where are the outlets and switches? Where will the televisions go? Well, the televisions was good to know because they could add extra wood behind the sheetrock to support those TVs, and we did go for that option. But those little decisions become much bigger once the walls are up. Things can still go wrong. Even after you made all these decisions, things can still happen during construction. At one point, there was damage to our quartz countertop from drilling. Obviously, that wasn't something we were thrilled about. But the Villages addressed it and replaced the countertop. As my dad once said, it ain't what happens to you in life that counts. It's what you do about it that makes you who you are. I'll always remember that. Things are going to happen. The important thing is how they're handled. And let me tell you, the Villages handled it perfectly. Looking back, one of the smartest things we did during the entire design process was simply taking our time. And some people don't have a place to stay and come in specifically to get the whole thing done. I understand that. But if you have the ability to give yourself some extra time, we would absolutely recommend it. See what the builder offers. Understand what it costs. Then go out and compare your options before you decide. Because we learned that there are basically two kinds of upgrades. Things you really want to do during construction and things that make a lot more sense to do after closing. Knowing the difference can save you a lot of money and help you end up with the house you actually want. And speaking of things you can do later, there was one little decision we kept talking about. The pool. Do we put one in? Do we wait? Where would it go? How big? And remember, we got that incredible Central Lake view that we absolutely don't want to screw up. So that's becoming a story of its own, and we'll get to that. We walked into the design center, had a piece of property, and an idea of what we wanted. When we walked out, we actually designed our home. Now, all they had to do was build it. And that's where this story gets really interesting. Because on March 23rd, they started moving dirt. And about 9 weeks later, that's right, 9 weeks later, we had a house. In the next episode, Dirt to Doorbell, you're going to see this thing go from dirt to our dream home. Faster than we ever imagined. I'm John. Thanks for coming along for this ride. And if you're thinking about building the villages, or just curious to see whether we made some brilliant decisions, or really stupid ones, subscribe and stick around, because we got a lot more to show you.